one announcement, and all your structure of all your friends and family are gone. This is something very difficult to understand for people who were never Jehovah's Witnesses. But for those who were, it's like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. One announcement, and all your social structure that you have as Jehovah's Witnesses are gone. People who love you, who would take care of you, people who you loved and maybe you helped a lot, don't want to know your name. Why? Sometimes you didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes you just disagreed with their beliefs. And that was enough. You know what? I know exactly how hard it was for many people. It was very difficult for me to overcome that challenge because I was very deeply in. Not only my wife and my kids obviously were witnesses, although my kids were small and not baptized, but my wife was a strong believer. I was a strong believer. My sisters, they're all married to elders pioneering. One served in Bethel. My mother is a witness. Like everybody around me was a witness. So knowing that I will lose everyone that I care about from one day to the next if they announce me as disfellowshipped, it was terrifying. But now that I'm looking at the perspective of time, I tell you what, although it was a difficult pill to swallow, because majority of Jehovah's Witnesses, almost all of them, don't want anything to do with me, including my family. But now that I'm looking at things with a different perspective, I see that the people that are in my life are so much more valuable. The friendships that I have are so much more enhancing my life. People who I can trust deeply. And I know that if I say something that they will disagree with, they're not going to shun me. It is an extraordinary gift, but it's not easy to rebuild from one day to the next. And I know many Jehovah's Witnesses who are leaving or got disfellowshipped or disassociated themselves. They think, I will never have that friendships. I will never have that kind of community that I had before. So let's look at some of the good things that Jehovah's Witnesses had going for them. So I give you an example. Any Jehovah's Witness who's moving from one location to another, maybe even immigrating to another country, the huge advantage that they have is that already have an established community that thinks just like them. Remember this, when it comes to developing rapport and connection with people, it's all about commonality. People like each other when they're like each other. And it really helps when you meet people who are thinking like you, who have a similar values, similar beliefs, and within a short period of time, you can have that connection because you know exactly how this crowd of people is thinking, what they're doing. You know what they're doing on Tuesday, you know what they're doing on Thursday, you know what they're doing on Saturday morning, you know what they're doing on Sunday, you know the books that they're reading, you know the beliefs that they have, the values, everything is pretty much spelled out. You know 80% of a person's personality simply because you know there are Jehovah's Witnesses. And when you join another congregation, you don't know anybody yet, but within a very short period of time, people will get to know you, especially because of the door-to-door ministry. So I know now it's kind of slowing down and COVID kind of put things in a different perspective, but that really brought people together because they had to spend time. And the more time you spend with other people, then the closer you will get. Plus, even if we're shy, maybe we didn't know people, the fact that they would assign us to go and work with somebody else, it kind of forced us to talk to them. And very soon we could develop rapport and develop friendships in the congregation. That was a good part. And to be honest, we're very tribal. We like feeling like we belong somewhere, that we have a mission, we have a specific social structure, and that it's supporting, knowing that there are elders who will take care of us. And if we get sick, people will help us out. And there's somebody to call in case we get in trouble. It is very beneficial, no doubt about it. And many Jehovah's Witnesses who are actually not believers, they don't believe it anymore, PMOs, as we call them, right? Physically and mentally out. They don't want to leave because of this, because the structure that they have, they don't know how to replace it outside. And I'll be honest, I loved my congregation. I still love some of the people there because I know how caring and loving they were. We had a program of taking care of elderly, and we would go visit them, especially in the wintertime. We would check on them, deliver groceries or shovel their driveways. We would do this all without any pay and out of our own good hearts. So it's really good to be in that kind of environment when you feel that you have people backing you up. The challenge is when you leave. When you leave and you feel like, oh, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle this. How am I supposed to restructure my life? How am I supposed to find friends? Who's going to like me? Who's going to love me? I'm odd. I'm angry at the watchtower. I'm agitated. I'm going through depression, nervous breakdown, trauma. Who's going to love me? And you might feel that, you know what, this isolation, this ostracism is really kicking in, especially those who are ostracized from their own children, from their own family members. It really plays a huge toll on them emotionally and spiritually, physically, you name it. It's a traumatic experience, has an enormous impact. But now, how do we build this up? See, here are some advantages of not being a witness anymore. The number one advantage, I would say, is this: you get to choose. You get to choose who is your friend and who is not. See, the problem was, you, especially those who were raised, you were inside the congregation and everybody outside was demonized. So we had a name for worldly people, we had a name for those who were weak spiritually, we had a name for those who were apostates. There was labels for everyone. And based on those labels, you get to decide who will be your friend. That's the witness world. Now, without this label that tells you, oh, this person is a good spiritually, therefore he might be a good friend, and that person is on a high position in the congregation, therefore you should spend as much time with him as you possibly can, and that person is weak spiritually, so maybe, lower your time that you're spending with that person. And those labels gave us this permission or guideline of how much time we should spend with people and who should be our friend or not. Now that we don't have that guideline, we don't have those labels, we go outside and we have to create our own standard of who will be our friend. Because previously there was a lot of judgments toward people who are gay, people who are worldly, people who are weak spiritually, people who are atheists, people who are lesbians, people who are transgender, you name it. There was a lot of prejudgment towards different people. And now that you leave, you got to set up your own standard, who will be your friend and who will not be your friend. And it's scary because previously it was like given on a silver platter. How do we learn to trust again? Because as a Jehovah's Witness, the different level of involvement in the organization basically represented trust. If it's a worldly people, you don't trust very much. If it's an interested one, right, you trust a little bit more. If it's baptized, you trust more. If it's pioneer, you trust more. If it's circle of a seer, you trust more, and so on and on. And the other way around. If it's weak spiritually, you trust less. If it's disfellowship, you don't trust at all. If it's an apostate, then you will never, ever in your life trust such a person with anything. So that level of trust, that kind of structure basically is gone. You leave and you're like, how do I determine who to trust? Well, here's one thing. They told you not to trust yourself. That was a problem. Because now you leave, and truthfully, the problem why you don't want to trust other people is because you don't trust yourself. Because previously you had the guideline of who to trust, and now you don't have it. And this is why you're afraid of trusting others, because you trusted certain amount of people and they betrayed your trust. You thought they're going to love you no matter what. You thought their love is unconditional, and everything was conditional. Everything was conditional based on your involvement in the congregation, based on your status in the religion. And once that status is gone, then the trust is gone. And now you're wondering, how do I rebuild this social structure? How can I have friends if I don't have the guidelines of who to trust? Well, the number one thing, you have to learn how to trust yourself. It's not that you don't trust others. You don't trust yourself. You don't trust yourself because you don't have a specific guideline of who to trust. Because you don't trust your own judgment. You were told not to trust your own judgment. You were told, don't rely on your own understanding. Don't rely upon your heart. It's treacherous. You were told those things all the time. Plus, Satan is after you. He's gonna devour you like a roaring lion after the sheep, right? So you leave and you're full of fears because everybody outside of the congregation was demonized. How can you trust those people who previously you viewed as worldly or apostates or weak spiritually? How do you trust? Well, here's how you're going to choose from now on. If I may say, and I share my experience, it might help you. Well, every decision that we make in our life is based basically on two things. One is our beliefs and one is our values. Beliefs and values is basically determines our personality of who we are. The challenge with Jehovah's Witnesses is that the number one value was obedience, because obedience meant salvation. If obedience means salvation, and we will do whatever it takes to survive, then you're going to obey no matter what, even if it's not logical. They would actually say that. Even if the direction is illogical, you still have to obey because that is your salvation. And we will do whatever it takes to survive. So now that that part is gone, what would be your top value? You got to figure that out for yourself. Is it being authentic? Is it being free? Is it being right? You got to create your own hierarchy and structure of values. And based on those values, you are going to now find friends. I tell you what, it seems logical for most people that life should be the highest value. Life should be the highest value, but not for Jehovah's Witnesses. For Jehovah's Witnesses, obedience is the highest value. So if they have a choice between dying or taking blood transfusion, they would die, because life is not the highest value. Obedience is. Even if they don't understand fully all the blood fractions and all the stuff, it doesn't matter. Even if it's illogical, it doesn't matter. What matters is, are we obedient? Because that means everlasting life. So now you got to choose what is the most important thing for you. And you're looking at people's beliefs and values. And here's another thing. When it comes to beliefs, as Jehovah's Witnesses, we had to agree upon everything. Otherwise, we were viewed as potential danger. Okay? So you couldn't possibly be a Jehovah's Witness, believe 99.9% of all the doctrines that they teach, and obey every rule there is except one. Maybe you just want to celebrate birthdays. That's it. You just can't see anything wrong with it. There's nothing in the Bible that directly prohibits it. It's not a sin, and you're like, that's it. That's the one thing I'm gonna do. Everything else I'm gonna agree with. No, not a chance. It's all or nothing. You're either with us or you're against us. That's the mentality that they have. And it's very difficult to overcome it now that you leave, because it stays with you. It stays with you that in subconscious mind, that if you disagree with somebody, they might cut you off. They might view you as potential danger. We have to start getting used to and getting comfortable with disagreeing with other people and yet still be friends. That is a gift. That is a gift for every ex-Jehovah's Witness. I have many people who completely disagree with my point of view regarding God, supernatural things, and Bible and all this stuff. No problem. And we're still friends till today. But see, the thing is, when you're prejudging people, that's when you're in trouble, because you're saying, oh, this person is on this level and they told me that that person on this level is danger to my spirituality. I should not be his friend. That means you're not relying upon your own mind. You're relying on somebody else's mind and somebody else's structure of who should be your friend. That's like a little child. And the parent says, oh, you cannot go and play with Johnny. Well, why not? Because I told you so. Well, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense. I know what's best for you. And that's how Jehovah's Witnesses are being treated. They will tell you, oh, this person is disfellowshipped. You can't play with them. You can't say hi to them. You can't greet them. You can't go for a coffee with them. And if you ask them, well, why not? It's not for you to ask. We're not going to tell you. You just have to obey. You have to trust us. So here's a couple of guidelines that truly helped me to choose my friends. because I realized that the way I'm going to choose my friends is not based on what they believe in or their sexual orientation, but the number one thing is how they treat me. How they treat me. What is their attitude? And based on that, I will decide whether I want to spend time with them or not, whether I'm going to allow them into my close circle. Because it's very important to realize how people operate, and the way they treat others, it's usually how they're going to treat you. And it's the gift of not being in an organization like Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, is the fact that people are a lot more authentic. So you might think, oh, it's much easier to get to know Jehovah's Witnesses because you join the congregation, you know so much about them. That's true to a certain extent. You will know about 80% about these people's lives. But the last 20%, it's extremely difficult to get to know, especially those who lead a double life. There's this 20% that happens behind the closed doors. Those people are totally different at the meeting or in service than they are behind the closed doors. This is why so many witnesses, when they go to the elders or when they become elders, they're shocked at the problems that the congregations have. Shocked at how many people go to the elders and they're saying, my husband is doing A, B, C, and D, or my wife is doing this and this. And they're like, really? And those are the problems you have? It's crazy, but it's true. These are regular people. They have the same problems like everybody else. They just hide it totally differently. This is why it's so shocking to find out that an elder of a congregation could abuse a child as a child molester, as a pedophile. It's shocking because you know him in the Kingdom Hall, and he's this nice guy. Everybody loves him, and everybody cares about him, and he cares about others, and he's so good. And then you find out that behind the closed doors, that's what he's doing. Right? It's hard to believe, but the challenge is people are not always authentic, and in an environment like this, it's very difficult to get to know that last 20%. While outside of the organization, people are a lot more authentic. So you will get to know them a lot quicker, because if the guy is lazy, he's cheating, he's abusive, you will get to know him very quickly, because that's how he is. That's how he is towards the waitress. That's how he is towards the neighbor. That's how he is towards his boss, coworkers, wife, children, whatever. That's how he is. He's not hiding. He doesn't have to hide. And you will see, and you're like, you know what? I don't want to spend time with this type of a person. And the fact that you now hanging around with people who are more authentic, it will be much easier for you to decide whether you want to spend time with them or not. Okay. It might not be as easy to create 100 people in your group, but guess what? You will no longer be forced to be friends with somebody who you don't like. Your friendships now depend on you. It's not somebody else telling you, oh, you know what, today, brother so-and-so, you're going to work with brother so-and-so. And maybe you hate the guy's guts. You know what I'm talking about. There was many times that when I joined the congregation that I was in, there was a group of guys. They did nothing but sarcasm and make fun of me. Especially back then, I was learning English. I wasn't good at English. And they were making fun of me all the time. All the time. And it was extremely difficult for me to be in the Kingdom Hall, because I couldn't understand why, when I'm going to school, the kids are accepting me. They're helping me with learning English. They're helping me with my homeworks and this and that. And I go to the Kingdom Hall and they do nothing but make fun of me. I'm not saying that's everybody's experience. That was my experience with that group of people. But the problem was I couldn't escape it. I mean, I could have probably changed the congregation if I really wanted to. But every time you go to the congregation, it was like, oh my gosh, we're going to service, and I'm just waiting who I'm going to be assigned with. And like, oh yeah, not him again. Like, oh man. And just gonna force yourself. You go door to door, and you're going with somebody you don't like, and you kind of feel like you were forced to it, which many times, believe me, it was very, very stressful. Now you get to choose, and you don't have to spend time with people you don't like. They don't share your values. They don't share your beliefs. You don't have to shun them. You just don't have time for them. This is their life. They have different friends. They have different values. They want to do different things. Let them. Let them. Don't shun them just because they are different. They have different beliefs or different sexuality. You could shun people who are abusive towards you and say, you know what? This is how you behave. This is what you have done. This is destructive. This is hateful. I don't want this in my life. Goodbye. And you're going to block these people from your phone. But you're going to do this not because somebody else telling you to, like in the case of Jehovah's Witnesses, where they say you have to block this person from your life because they're no longer Jehovah's Witnesses. That guy never did anything to you, never hurt you. Maybe was a really caring person. That doesn't matter. What matters is this person still a Jehovah's Witness? But now you get to decide who you want in your life or not. And the beauty about this is you could disagree. You could disagree with them. You could agree on 10%, 20%, 50%, 80%. It doesn't matter. It's how you treat the other person. As a matter of fact, I would say this. The fact that you disagree and you still care about the person will bring you closer than any similarities that you have. That's where true love and true passion is all about. Think about it. When I'll give you an example, even between a man and a woman, right? There are definitely differences between what woman loves and what man loves. We just build differently. We have different values, right? And what brings us together is maybe we love the same things, right? We love the same entertainment. He goes skiing, she goes skiing, and he likes certain music, she likes certain music. They go to the same shows, they love the same movies or whatever. And the more things they have in common, the closer it brings them. But there are obvious differences. And when she will do something that he doesn't like, he's okay with it, that's when he brings them together. That's where the passion is. That's when the intimate relationship begins. Because we feel like we can be authentic, we can be ourselves. We're not seeking the approval of the other person that we have to be the same. No, as a matter of fact, we can be different. We can have our own voice and our own opinion, and we can be different, and the person will love us no matter what. That is the beauty about it. And this is something the Jehovah's Witnesses actually don't get to experience. Because for them, it's like, you have a different opinion? Woo! Is this allowed? How far are we going to go with this? Are you a danger to me? And they will never accept you as a different person. Now that you're out, you could be different. You could have your own opinion. As long as you're not forcing the other person to accept it, then the true friendship can begin. And on a much deeper level than before. You don't know all the people that will love you yet. You're going to meet so many more. And you're going to get to know so many more people who are really, really valuable in your life. So don't think that, because I lost X, Y, and Z, therefore I will no longer have friends. No. You were codependent on them. You relied on those relationships in order for you to feel a certain way. Whatever was that feeling, believe me, you play this right, you're going to get not only the same feelings, but you're going to get a lot better friendships, a lot more honest, a lot more authentic, and you will have people who you can trust and you can rely on fully, because you know that you can be yourself and disagree with them and they will love you no matter what. And that is the beauty. And that is a true upgrade from the love that they had, the conditional love that they had, to an unconditional love that somebody can give you, but you got to give it yourself. Now, how do you find these friends? There are many different ways. Just because somebody was an ex-Jehovah's Witness doesn't mean automatically they're going to be a good friend of yours. Like I said, just because we had the same past doesn't mean we have the same future, and they might have totally different values than you do. So having similar past experience could help to bring us closer because we have things in common. But truthfully, what you want to avoid is trauma bonding. Trauma bonding is a real thing. We were taught this as Jehovah's Witnesses. The best way of connecting with people, the quickest way, is bring a bad news. If you bring a bad news to a Jehovah's Witness, of course you're going to develop rapport. Just listen to what happened on the news. The war, pandemic, one attack, talking about nuclear weapons and all this stuff. You're going to bring all the trauma from the world. Plus, you can add your own personal problems with health, with your husband, with your wife, with your children. Whatever you have as problem, bring it to the table and we can connect because your pain and my pain, and we can just build this rapport on pain. Trauma bonding is very dangerous because you will feel the connection, you will feel that somebody understands your pain. But the truth is, in the long term, if that's the only way you're connecting with others, it will drain you down. You will not build anything because you will almost be like, if I share any of my successes, I'm going to be criticized. And if I share my problems, people will love me. That's a subconscious belief that messes people up. Because among Jehovah's Witnesses, if you shared any of your success, guess what happened? You would be criticized. You'll be criticized. No glory towards you. Everything goes towards Jehovah. Everything goes towards the organization. But towards you, nothing. You can't take credit for anything, any success that you do. And if you try to share any success with your friends among Jehovah's Witnesses, most of them, they had to downplay it, at least downplay it, if they didn't have to hide it altogether. If somebody went to university, got into university, they couldn't share it because of how that was viewed. If they got into a really good job, the first question is, that job going to interfere with your service to Jehovah? Right? If you started your own business, great. Can you do part-time work since you are setting your own schedule? Can you pioneer? If not, maybe too materialistic. Maybe you're putting. I remember the guy was purchased a gym and he opened up this business, and everybody criticized him because he was working 12 hours a day. Young guy, 20, I don't know, 8 years old, 29 years old. He was so happy, and I was very happy for him. But all witnesses were judging him that he's focusing not on the right thing. Like, really? You want to know your friends quicker than anything else? Stop sharing your problems. Start sharing your successes. Start sharing things you're proud of, and watch. And watch if they cheer you on. If they cheer you on, if they're happy for you, genuinely happy for you, even though they don't have the same success, those are your friends. If they're criticizing you, if they're like, oh, you know what, it's easy for you to say, you got lucky, right? It's not easy for the rest of us, and they're just bringing you how they are the victim of whatever, then they're not your friends. Then limit the amount of time you're going to spend with these people. There's what we call energy vampires. They're just going to find problems in everything, no matter how great their life is. And they might live in the best country in the world, and they might have the best freedom, and they might have the best opportunity, and they have good education, and they're living in a great place. And it's all a problem with the government. It's all a problem with Jehovah's Witnesses. It's all a problem with their parents. It's all a problem with their schooling. There's always somebody to blame. These type of people, it's better to limit the amount of time you're spending with them. That's why I'm saying, if you share your successes instead of problems, and people will treat you nice and they'll be happy for you, and these are the people that you want to surround yourself with. And I remember myself first. I thought, I don't have that group. I want to surround myself with people who are smarter than me, people who are more successful than me, people who are on a different level, higher level than me. I want to surround myself with people who will truly make an impact on my life, because all the people that I'm surrounding myself with, they're not the greatest example, right? I couldn't find somebody who would inspire me. And I thought, you know what? These guys, they wrote books and they wrote biographies. And I started reading books, reading about their books. And I started getting influence simply by reading books, reading their history of how they grew up, what challenges they had, what beliefs they had to overcome, what problems they had in life, and what turned everything around, how they had, certain success and then they collapse and then they rebuild it again. I wanted to know what was their mindset, what were their beliefs, and what were their values, and what actions they had to take in order to get where they are. Those were the things that I was obsessed with. And guess what? Sooner or later, these people started showing up in my life, and I started asking them questions. I'm like, hey, how did you do this? I heard that you came to Canada with nothing, and now I see you being a multimillionaire, and you're in your 30s. How did you do this? Did you get lucky? Did you win a lottery? Like, tell me, how did you do this? Right? I offered to work for free for people. And I said, you know what? I see you're very successful. I will work for you for free. Just teach me what you know. I did that. And guess what? Some people took me on it. Some people didn't, but some people did. And they said, fine, I'm not gonna pay you. Sit down with me. And I did. This is how I learned how to trade on the market. This is how I learned how to buy and sell real estate. And guess what? It paid off. But if I surround myself only with people who were not successful and were constantly playing a victim, then your life will never change. You will become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you learn nothing else from this talk today, please remember this. You will become the average of the 5 people you're spending the most time with. It's a rule that has never been broken. That's why they said, show me your friends and I'll show you who you are. So be careful who you surround yourself with. This is why it was so easy for us to judge a Jehovah's Witness, because we knew who was their friend. And the environment that they were surrounding themselves with played a huge role of who they are today. And this is where you can make a huge impact on yourself, when surround yourself with people. Okay. And today it's very easy, simply clicking on YouTube, and then you can surround yourself with people who will teach you how to be a better person. Okay. And then, believe me or not, you're going to become smarter, and you're going to attract people who are smarter. You're going to attract people who are more successful. You're going to attract people who will actually want to spend time with you, because they're like, oh, this guy, he resonates with me. He's playing the same game. He's on the same level like me. Who wants to go and play, I don't know, basketball with somebody who never played it before? It's frustrating, right? Unless you're teaching them. But in the long term, you want to play with somebody who's playing at least as good as you, or even hopefully a little bit better. Because if they're playing a little bit better than you, you're going to learn. If they're playing worse than you, you're going to slack off. So choose your friends wisely. Remember, also friendships have expiry dates. You might outgrow them and you might move on, and that's fine too. It's okay to say goodbye. You played a certain role in my life, just like Jehovah's Witnesses. They played a certain role. I'm happy that I met many of them. I'm happy the time I spent with them. We had great time. We played basketball. We played volleyball, played soccer. We did a whole bunch of parties together. That was great time. I love that. I moved on. I have different type of friends right now. And I'll be honest, if I were to go back, it would really feel like a downgrade, because they still do the same things. They still go to the same picnics. They still go and preach the same thing. Their mind is at a level that I completely outgrew. I wouldn't be able to even play with them at the same level. It's like going back to kindergarten and playing basketball with kids. You can do it for a moment, but in the long term, you're like, you guys enjoy yourselves, right? Because I wouldn't be able to do it in the long term. And same with you. You're going to outgrow these people if you focus not on all the dirt that they have done, but you're going to focus on how to use this time now to better yourself. And instead of looking at fault, you're going to outgrow it, and you're going to experience totally new friendships, better friendships, more loving, more caring, more helping. And at the same time, you're going to become a better friend, more loving, more caring, with unconditional love, not prejudging, although you'll be able to judge pretty quickly, not on people's beliefs, but based on people's behavior, their attitude, who they are as people. Thanks for watching. Hope that helped, and see you in the next one.